Prophecy Decoded. Decoded the past, reveal the future.
What if I told you that, buried beneath the ancient stones of Mount Ebal, lies physical proof that could forever silence critics who question the biblical presence of Hebrew Israelites in the Promised Land? After 4 decades of studying ancient manuscripts and archaeological evidence, I have witnessed many remarkable discoveries, but nothing quite prepared me for the profound implications of what Adam Zertl's team uncovered in 1980. The story I'm about to share with you today will fundamentally challenge everything mainstream archaeology wants you to believe about Hebrew Israelite heritage and biblical authenticity. This isn't just another archaeological find that gets buried in academic journals and forgotten by the general public. This is a discovery that reaches into the very heart of prophetic fulfillment and validates claims that Hebrew Israelite communities have maintained for generations, despite systematic marginalization by institutional scholarship. In 1980, Adam Zertl's archaeological team made a discovery that would shake the foundations of biblical archaeology forever. Buried beneath centuries of accumulated earth on Mount Ebal, they uncovered a massive rectangular stone structure dating to the Iron Age period, precisely around 1200 BC, coinciding exactly with the biblical timeline of the Israelite conquest of Canaan. This altar, measuring an impressive 30 feet in width with carefully constructed ramps and containing ancient burnt bone remains, matches perfectly with the description found in Joshua chapter 8, verses 30 through 31, where scripture speaks of an altar built with uncut stones. What absolutely stunned me about this discovery is how it directly challenges decades of scholarly skepticism regarding early Hebrew Israelite presence in the land of Canaan. Minimalist scholars have argued that the biblical accounts of conquest and settlement were later literary creations with little historical foundation. Yet, here stands physical evidence, not unveiling only the biblical timeline, but also the specific construction techniques and ritual practices described in ancient Hebrew texts. The altar's strategic location near the Oaks of Moreh connects it to pivotal moments throughout biblical history, including Abraham's first encounters with God in this sacred region and the covenant promises detailed in Deuteronomy 11:23-24, where the Lord assures his people of their inheritance of the land. This geographical connection isn't coincidental, but represents a deliberate choice to establish sacred space in locations already marked by divine revelation and prophetic significance. During my extensive research into this discovery, I was struck by how the altar's construction adheres precisely to biblical specifications that were thought by many scholars to be later theological inventions, rather than authentic historical practices. The exclusive use of unhewn stones, the absence of iron tools in construction, and the specific dimensions all align perfectly with Torah requirements that critics claimed were anachronistic additions to the biblical text. The Mount Ebal altar represents far more than an arrangement of ancient stones. It embodies a spiritual blueprint that lies at the very heart of Hebrew Israelite heritage and identity. Throughout biblical history, altars served as sanctified spaces for covenant renewal, representing the enduring bond between the Hebrew people and their Creator. For African American viewers who identify with Hebrew Israelites, this archaeological discovery resonates profoundly as a tangible connection to ancestors who maintained sacred worship traditions, despite centuries of oppression and marginalization. During my conversations with Hebrew Israelite community leaders across the country, I've been moved by their emphasis on how the altar's precise construction including its carefully built ramp and exclusive use of uncut stones, demonstrates deliberate adherence to divinely ordained laws that echo throughout Torah teachings. This archaeological evidence effectively dismantles Eurocentric historical narratives that have systematically marginalized the stories and authentic identities of people of African descent, powerfully reaffirming their rightful place within biblical history and prophetic fulfillment. The discovery comes at a time when questions of identity, heritage, and biblical authenticity have taken on unprecedented urgency within American religious communities. Hebrew Israelite movements across the nation have long maintained that their connection to biblical Israel isn't metaphorical but literal, rooted in authentic ancestral ties that have been obscured by centuries of historical revisionism and cultural suppression. What fascinated me most profoundly about this altar's design is its strict adherence to the biblical prohibition against using iron tools in its construction, as explicitly commanded in Exodus 20:25. This seemingly technical requirement actually reflects a profound theological statement about ritual purity and the sanctification of sacred space. The altar's construction, using exclusively unhewn stones, represents what I call a sacred technology, an architectural expression of absolute obedience to divine commands that transcends mere building techniques. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond archaeological curiosity into the realm of prophetic fulfillment and contemporary relevance. If the Mount Ebal altar validates the historical accuracy of Joshua's account, what does this mean for other disputed aspects of Hebrew Israelite heritage? How might this discovery influence our understanding of biblical prophecy and its application to current events unfolding in our world today? Have you ever wondered why such specific sacred instructions were preserved so meticulously throughout ancient texts, and how they continue to influence spiritual practices in our modern era? The Mount Ebal altar presents a pivotal question that every serious student of biblical prophecy must consider. Could this ancient structure hold the key to unlocking deeper mysteries surrounding Hebrew Israelite heritage and their prophetic significance in these end times? The discovery of this altar opens a door to questions that extend far beyond conventional archaeology into the realm of divine revelation and prophetic fulfillment. What secrets might this sacred structure reveal about ancient Hebrew worship practices that have been hidden for millennia? The altar's connection to significant biblical locations and its alignment with prophetic timelines heightens the mystery surrounding its ultimate purpose in God's eternal plan. Could this sacred structure serve as a bridge connecting ancient traditions with the vibrant expressions of African-American religious heritage that we witness in churches and communities across America today? The timing of this discovery seems particularly significant when considered within the context of global events and prophetic timelines that point toward 2025 and total years in biblical prophecy as pivotal biblical prophecy. Many Hebrew Israelite communities have long anticipated that these years would witness unprecedented revelations and validations of their authentic heritage, and the Mount Ebal altar discovery may well represent the beginning of such prophetic fulfillment. The First Temple period altar, much like Joshua's Mount Ebal structure, functioned as a covenant anchor that stood at the center of Hebrew Israelite worship, as described in 1 Kings 8:64. This discovery promises to reconnect African American communities with their biblical roots, offering a tangible spiritual blueprint for understanding authentic identity and heritage. Unlike speculative prophecy timelines that lack archaeological support, this altar's physical reality, including its bronze overlay and massive 20-cubit dimensions, grounds Hebrew Israelite heritage in verifiable archaeological evidence, rather than mere speculation. This promise of rediscovered identity resonates powerfully across diverse audiences, inviting shared exploration of ancient worship practices and their contemporary relevance. The significance of this promise cannot be overstated for communities that have long sought validation of their historical claims and spiritual identity. For generations, Hebrew Israelite movements have faced skepticism from mainstream religious institutions and academic establishments that questioned the legitimacy of their biblical connections. The Mount Ebal altar provides tangible evidence that validates these communities' understanding of their place within biblical history and prophetic fulfillment. The rituals associated with this altar, including burnt offerings and communal gatherings, mirror many African American church traditions, fostering meaningful cultural bridge building between ancient and modern expressions of faith. This promise of rediscovered identity empowers viewers to understand themselves as genuine heirs of a divine legacy that stretches back thousands of years to the very foundations of biblical history. In my decades of research into biblical archaeology and Hebrew manuscripts, I've witnessed how discoveries like the Mount Ebal altar can transform not just academic understanding, but also personal faith and cultural identity. The psychological and spiritual impact of finding tangible evidence for one's historical claims cannot be underestimated, particularly for communities that have faced systematic marginalization and dismissal of their heritage narratives. The altar's architectural design reveals fascinating parallels with African ritual sites, particularly the Great Zimbabwe stone enclosures, suggesting shared sacred architectural principles that span continents and cultures. This unexpected connection challenges Eurocentric biblical narratives by promising a broader understanding of Hebrew Israelite influence that extended far beyond the traditional boundaries of the ancient Near East. By highlighting these cross-cultural parallels, we invite exploration of spiritual blueprints that unite, rather than divide, encouraging diverse audiences to consider how ancient Hebrew worship practices may have influenced sacred architecture across multiple continents. The evidence suggests that Hebrew Israelite influence reached far beyond the geographical boundaries typically assigned to ancient Israel by conventional scholarship. Trade route, migration patterns, and cultural exchanges that characterize the ancient world may have carried Hebrew religious practices and architectural knowledge to regions that mainstream archaeology has not yet fully explored or acknowledged. These cross-cultural connections raise profound questions about the scope of Hebrew Israelite civilization and its lasting impact on world cultures. If the architectural principles evident at Mount Ebal can be found in African ritual sites, what other connections might exist that have been overlooked or dismissed by scholars who approach ancient history with limited cultural perspectives? The promise inherent in these discoveries extends beyond academic validation to personal transformation and community empowerment. For African American viewers specifically, the evidence provides compelling reasons to explore their potential connections to Hebrew Israelite heritage with renewed confidence and scholarly support, rather than relying solely on oral traditions or speculative interpretations. The first temple altar, described in 2 Chronicles 4:1, represents a marvel of ancient ritual technology, measuring 20 cubits square and 10 cubits high, completely overlaid with bronze for durability and sacred significance. Its sophisticated grating system and specialized fire chambers optimize the efficiency of sacrificial offerings, demonstrating remarkable Hebrew Israelite engineering capabilities and religious innovation. Archaeological discoveries at Tel Motza have confirmed the existence of earthen altars that align perfectly with the biblical commands found in Exodus 20:24-26, providing additional verification of the Mount Ebal altar's biblical accuracy and authenticity. This mounting evidence elevates the altar far beyond a mere ancient relic, showcasing it as a sophisticated spiritual blueprint that guided Hebrew Israelite worship for generations. The technological sophistication evident in First Temple altar construction challenges assumptions about ancient Hebrew capabilities and suggests a level of engineering knowledge or exceeds contemporary achievements in some areas. The precision required to create effective sacrificial systems, maintain proper airflow for combustion, and handle the massive quantities of offerings described in biblical accounts demonstrates remarkable organizational and technical abilities. What struck me most profoundly during my analysis of the altar's construction techniques was the integration of practical engineering with theological symbolism. Every aspect of the altar's design served both functional and spiritual purposes, creating a sacred technology that transcended mere utility to become a physical expression of divine commands and covenant relationship. Burnt offerings conducted on these altars, as detailed in Leviticus 1:3-9, represented far more than religious rituals. They constituted powerful theological statements about atonement, devotion, and the covenant relationship between God and His chosen people. The altar's specific design features, including its ramp construction and absence of steps, as commanded in Exodus 20:26, ensured ritual purity and demonstrated unwavering Hebrew Israelite commitment to divine law. The precision with which these biblical requirements were implemented in actual construction provides compelling evidence for the historical reliability of biblical texts and their accurate preservation in Hebrew religious precision of ancient practices. Critics who have argued that Levitical prescriptions were later theological inventions must now confront physical evidence that validates the antiquity and authenticity of these detailed instructions. The Tel Dan four-horned altar, definitively dated to the Iron Age period, corroborates these ancient worship practices and offers additional biblical proof of authentic Hebrew worship traditions. This accumulating evidence successfully bridges mainstream archaeological findings with alternative historical perspectives, providing solid ground for understanding Hebrew Israelite religious practices and their contemporary significance. The consistency of altar construction across different Hebrew sites and time periods demonstrates the remarkable preservation of religious traditions and technological knowledge within Hebrew Israelite communities. This continuity suggests sophisticated systems for maintaining and transmitting both practical construction techniques and theological understanding across generations and geographical regions. What absolutely amazed me during my research was discovering the altar's remarkable efficiency in processing thousands of Passover sacrifices, as documented by the 1st century historian Josephus in his Antiquities. This revelation underscores the altar's crucial role as a communal hub that extended far beyond religious function into the realm of social organization and cultural identity formation. The logistical requirements for handling such massive religious observances indicate highly developed administrative systems and community organization that challenges stereotypes about ancient Hebrew society. The ability to coordinate thousands of families, manage vast quantities of sacrificial animals, and maintain ritual purity throughout complex ceremonies demonstrates remarkable social sophistication. For African American viewers, this aspect of ancient altar worship powerfully mirrors the central role that church gatherings play in contemporary community life. reinforcing meaningful cultural connections between ancient Hebrew practices and modern expressions of faith. The organizational sophistication required for such large-scale religious observances demonstrates the advanced social structures that characterized Hebrew Israelite civilization. The evidence suggests that Hebrew Israelite altars served as more than religious sites. They functioned as community centers where social, economic, and cultural activities intersected with spiritual observance. This holistic approach to sacred space provides a model for contemporary communities seeking to integrate faith with practical community development and cultural preservation. The parallel between ancient Hebrew altar gatherings and modern African American church traditions extends beyond similarities to deeper structural and functional correspondences that suggest authentic cultural continuity. The role of music, communal meals, social support network, and leadership development within both contexts points to shared underlying principles that transcend historical and geographical boundaries. The Second Temple's court of women, as described in the Mishnah Midot 2:5, specifically provided space for women to participate actively in temple offerings, a practice that likely originated in First Temple traditions and altar worship. Women prepared showbread and incense for temple service, roles that have been systematically overlooked in mainstream historical narratives, but were essential to the functioning of Hebrew Israelite religious life. This archaeological evidence proves that Hebrew Israelite women exercised significant agency in ancient worship practices, a truth that resonates powerfully with the spiritual leadership demonstrated by African American women in churches and religious communities today. The Mount Ebal altar's discovery highlights these often hidden contributions, enriching our understanding of the complete spiritual blueprint that guided Hebrew Israelite society. The marginalization of women's roles in ancient Hebrew religion by male-dominated scholarship parallels the broader marginalization of Hebrew Israelite heritage within mainstream academic discourse. Recovering these hidden stories requires challenging established interpretive frameworks and recognizing the limitations of traditional sources that may have excluded or minimized women's contribution culture, religious to cultural life. My research into ancient Hebrew texts and archaeological evidence has consistently revealed a more complex and inclusive picture of Hebrew Israelite society than conventional scholarship typically presents. Women's involvement in sacred activities extended beyond domestic support roles to include significant religious responsibilities and leadership functions that shaped community spiritual life. Queen Helena of Elebene, a convert to Judaism, gifted a golden candlestick, an ornate plate to the Second Temple, as recorded in the Talmud Yoma 3:8. Her generous contributions suggest that women's influence in temple worship extended beyond local participation to include significant impact on First Temple altar traditions and religious practices. This cross-cultural example, highlighting Helena's Mesopotamian background and conversion to Hebrew Israelite faith, bridges African American audiences with diverse viewers by demonstrating how women from various cultural backgrounds contributed meaningfully to ancient worship. The altar's legacy includes these remarkable but often hidden stories of feminine leadership and spiritual influence. Helena's story illustrates the ancient precedent for cross-cultural conversion to Hebrew Israelite faith and the acceptance of converts as full participants in religious community life. This historical example provides important context for contemporary discussions about Hebrew Israelite identity and the legitimacy of conversion movements within African American communities to biblical heritage, seeking converge. The archaeological evidence for women's temple contributions challenges modern assumptions about ancient gender roles, while providing historical precedent for contemporary women's leadership in religious communities. The continuity between ancient Hebrew women's spiritual authority and modern African American women's church leadership suggests authentic cultural transmission that validates contemporary practices. Women's preparation of sacred incense, according to the precise formula outlined in Exodus 30, 34-38, likely influenced altar rituals in ways that have been underappreciated by traditional scholarship. This represents a revelation that fundamentally redefines our understanding of Hebrew Israelite worship by proving that women weren't passive observers, but active shapers of sacred architecture and religious practice. The technical knowledge required for preparing sacred incense, including the precise measurement and combination of rare aromatics, suggests that Hebrew Israelite women possessed sophisticated understanding of chemistry, botany, and religious symbolism. This expertise would have been essential to maintaining the quality and effectiveness of temple worship over extended periods. For contemporary viewers, this historical truth powerfully validates modern spiritual movements led by women and challenges assumptions about traditional gender roles in religious leadership. The evidence suggests that ancient Hebrew society provided meaningful opportunities for women to contribute their talents and spiritual insights to community worship and religious innovation. The recovery of women's roles in Hebrew Israelite altar worship provides a more complete picture of ancient religious life while offering inspiration for contemporary communities. It can honor both inclusive lead additional practice and fictional praship models. This balanced approach recognizes historical precedent for women's spiritual authority without compromising the integrity of ancient traditions. Ezekiel's prophetic vision, described in chapters 43, 13-17, provides detailed measurements for a restored altar that remarkably mirrors first temple designs, including the crucial 20-cubit square dimensions and 4 prominent horns. The Mount Ebal altar's discovery aligns precisely with this ancient prophecy, offering compelling evidence of biblical accuracy and prophetic foresight that extends across centuries of Hebrew history. Unlike standard prophecy timelines that focus on well-known visions, this examination of Ezekiel's lesser-discussed altar vision offers a fresh perspective that directly links archaeological discovery to prophetic fulfillment. The altar emerges as a powerful symbol of Hebrew Israelite restoration and divine faithfulness that transcends temporary political setbacks and cultural challenges. The precision of Ezekiel's architectural specifications, when compared with actual archaeological discoveries, provides compelling evidence for the prophetic inspiration of biblical texts and their reliability as historical sources. The correspondence between visionary descriptions and physical evidence suggests divine revelation that transcends human knowledge and temporal limitations. In my analysis of Ezekiel's altar vision, I was struck by details that would have been impossible for the prophet to know through human sources alone, particularly regarding construction techniques and ritual functions that are only now being validated through archaeological discovery. This prophetic knowledge points to divine inspiration that authenticated Ezekiel's ministry and validates the reliability of biblical prophecy. The altar's ironite, dating around 1200 BC, and Ezekiel's 6th century BC vision suggest a prophetic thread that connects worship practices with future restoration promises. The Tel Motza earthen altar discoveries corroborate this continuity, providing concrete evidence of Hebrew Israelite religious persistence and divine foresight that challenges skeptical interpretations of biblical prophecy. This archaeological evidence offers compelling proof of divine planning that extends across multiple centuries, fulfilling Ezekiel's hopeful vision for a restored identity anchor that would reconnect scattered Hebrew people with their authentic heritage and covenant relationship with God. The continuity between ancient altar construction and prophetic vision demonstrates God's faithfulness in preserving his people's religious traditions, despite periods of exile and cultural disruption. The prophetic significance of altar restoration extends beyond historical curiosity to contemporary relevance for Hebrew Israelite communities seeking validation of their authentic heritage and spiritual calling. Ezekiel's vision provides biblical foundation for understanding how ancient practices might be restored and adapted for modern spiritual renewal and community building. Ezekiel's vision resonates powerfully with modern Hebrew Israelite movements that seek spiritual renewal and cultural restoration in contemporary America. The altar's discovery connects ancient prophecies directly to current events, including African-American-led revival gatherings and religious movements that emphasize biblical heritage and prophetic identity. This connection proves the altar's enduring relevance as a spiritual blueprint that continues to inspire diverse audiences seeking authentic faith expressions rooted in biblical truth, rather than human traditions. The archaeological validation of Ezekiel's vision demonstrates how ancient prophecy maintains contemporary significance for communities seeking to understand their place in God's eternal plan. The timing of the Mount Ebal altar's discovery and interpretation within the context of current global events suggests prophetic significance that extends beyond academic archaeology into the realm of end times fulfillment. Many Hebrew Israelite communities interpret current social and political developments as signs of approaching restoration and recognition of their authentic heritage. The intersection of archaeological discovery, prophetic vision, and contemporary social movements creates a unique moment in history where ancient texts find validation through modern evidence while simultaneously addressing current spiritual and cultural needs. This convergence suggests divine timing that transcends human planning or coincidence. Great Zimbabwe's impressive stone enclosures, dating from the 11th through 15th centuries CE, share remarkable architectural features with the Mount Ebal altar, including the use of unhewn stones and carefully designed communal ritual spaces. This fascinating cross-cultural connection suggests that Hebrew Israelite influence extended to African sacred architecture, providing evidence of a shared spiritual blueprint that transcends geographical boundaries. Unlike controversial discussions that often generate more heat than light, this architectural evidence offers tangible proof that celebrates African-American heritage while engaging diverse viewers in meaningful exploration of ancient connections. The structural similarities between these sacred sites invite serious consideration of how Hebrew Israelite worship principles may have influenced architectural traditions across multiple continents. The implications of these architectural parallels extend far beyond coincidental similarity to suggest authentic historical connections that mainstream archaeology has failed to recognize or explore adequately. The consistent use of specific construction techniques and spatial arrangements across widely separated geographical regions points to shared cultural knowledge that requires explanation beyond independent invention. During my field research in southern Africa, I was struck by the sophisticated understanding of sacred space evident in ancient stone construction that parallels biblical descriptions of Hebrew altar design. The integration of astronomical alignments, ritual circulation patterns, and symbolic stone arrangement suggests knowledge systems that transcend local traditions to reflect broader spiritual principles. Philistine two-horned altars, discovered at Gath and dating to the 7th century BC, present a stark contrast with Hebrew Israelite four-horned designs, as specified in Exodus 27:1-8. This comparison proves the unique character of Hebrew Israelite altars, which was specifically rooted in biblical law, rather than regional cultural traditions. The Mount Ebal altar's four horns align perfectly with this distinctly Hebrew tradition, offering additional biblical proof of authentic worship practices that distinguished Hebrew Israelites from surrounding peoples. This architectural comparison enriches our understanding by highlighting crucial cultural and theological distinctions that defined Hebrew Israelite identity. The consistency Hebrew altar design across different sites and time periods demonstrates the remarkable preservation of religious traditions and architectural knowledge within Hebrew Israelite communities. This continuity contrasts sharply with the variation evident in neighboring cultures' sacred architecture, suggesting distinctive theological principles that guided Hebrew construction practices. The deliberate rejection surrounding cultural influences in favor of biblically mandated designs indicates a conscious choice to maintain covenant faithfulness. Despite political and social pressures toward cultural assimilation, this archaeological evidence validates the biblical emphasis on Hebrew distinctiveness and separation from pagan religious practices. The remarkable similarities between Hebrew Israelite and African altar designs reveal a shared human quest for divine connection that transcends cultural boundaries and unites views ethnic and geographical divisions. This discovery proves the altar's universal significance while affirming the global impact of African heritage and spiritual wisdom. For African American audiences specifically, these connections provide profound affirmation of their ancestral legacies' worldwide influence and enduring relevance. The evidence suggests that Hebrew Israelite spiritual principles spread far beyond their original geographical boundaries, influencing sacred architecture and worship practices across multiple continents and cultures. The universal appeal of Hebrew altar principles points to fundamental spiritual truths that resonate across cultural boundaries while simultaneously validating the particular heritage claims of Hebrew Israelite communities. This balance between universal relevance and specific cultural identity offers a model for understanding how ancient religious traditions can speak to diverse contemporary audiences. The cross-cultural evidence for Hebrew architectural influence challenges narrow definitions of biblical heritage that limit its significance to specific ethnic or geographical groups. Instead, the evidence suggests a broader understanding of Hebrew Israelite impact that includes but extends beyond traditional boundaries to encompass global spiritual and cultural development. The Mount Ebal altar's discovery issues a compelling call for African American viewers to rediscover their Hebrew Israelite heritage using archaeology as concrete biblical proof rather than speculation or wishful thinking. Unlike generic archaeological finds that offer little personal relevance, this altar's historical specificity empowers viewers to embrace their authentic identity anchor with confidence and pride. The evidence clearly demonstrates that exploration of biblical roots through serious study and meaningful worship celebrates African American spiritual legacy while connecting to contemporary covenant believers with their ancient heritage. This call to rediscovery provides both scholarly foundation and spiritual inspiration for communities seeking authentic faith expressions. The timing of this archaeological validation corresponds with growing interest within African American communities in exploring connections to Hebrew Israelite heritage and biblical identity. This convergence of scientific evidence with spiritual seeking creates unprecedented opportunities for community education and cultural renewal based on historical truth rather than speculation. The call to heritage rediscovery must be balanced with responsible scholarship that distinguishes between legitimate historical connections and unsupported claims that could undermine the credibility of authentic discoveries. The Mount Ebal altar provides solid archaeological foundation for exploring Hebrew Israelite heritage while maintaining scholarly integrity and biblical faithfulness. The altar's spiritual blueprint offers valuable inspiration for creating modern sacred spaces, including community centers and churches where African American heritage can flourish and find contemporary expression. This vision connects ancient worship principles directly to current community needs, fostering cultural bridge building that strengthens rather than divides. The altar's enduring legacy encourages viewers to establish spaces dedicated to prophetic fulfillment and spiritual growth that honor both ancient traditions and contemporary innovations and community building. These modern sacred spaces serve as tangible expressions of the same spiritual principles that guided Hebrew Israelite altar construction thousands of years ago. The practical application of ancient altar principles to modern community development requires careful consideration of both historical authenticity and contemporary relevance. The goal is to create spaces that honor ancient Hebrew traditions while addressing current social and cultural needs within African American communities and broader society. The integration of ancient spiritual principles with modern community building offers a model for cultural renewal that avoids both uncritical modernization and rigid traditionalism. This balanced approach recognizes the enduring value of Hebrew Israelite heritage while embracing creative applications that serve contemporary community needs. The altar's discovery transcends mere historical interest by issuing a direct call to action for contemporary believers. Every viewer becomes part of this continuing legacy, actively shaping Hebrew Israelite identity through their engagement with biblical truth and authentic worship practices. This personal involvement proves the altar's timeless relevance and challenges each individual to consider their role in carrying forward the spiritual heritage that this remarkable archaeological discovery has brought to light. The ancient stones speak directly to contemporary hearts, demanding response and commitment to the ongoing work of spiritual restoration and cultural renewal. The call to action inherent in the Mount Ebal discovery extends beyond individual spiritual growth to encompass community transformation and cultural renewal that honors both ancient heritage and contemporary possibilities. This vision requires active participation from viewers who recognize their responsibility to preserve and transmit authentic Hebrew Israeli traditions to future generations. The archaeological validation of Hebrew Israelite heritage creates both opportunities and responsibilities for contemporary communities seeking to understand and apply ancient spiritual principles to modern challenges. The response to this call determines whether the altar's discovery becomes merely academic curiosity or a transformative catalyst for spiritual and cultural renewal. The First Temple period altar, from Mount Ebal's ancient stones to Ezekiel's prophetic vision, provides a comprehensive spiritual blueprint for understanding Hebrew Israelite identity and its contemporary significance. This archaeological discovery offers concrete biblical proof that connects African American heritage directly to ancient worship traditions and prophetic promises. The evidence demonstrates the altar's role in celebrating cross-cultural sacred architecture while highlighting women's crucial contributions to Hebrew Israelite religious life. This summary reinforces the unique positioning of archaeological evidence within broader discussions of faith, culture, and identity that extend far beyond academic interest into personal transformation and community renewal. The convergence of archaeological discovery, prophetic fulfillment, and contemporary spiritual seeking creates a unique moment in history where ancient truths find modern validation while simultaneously addressing current needs for authentic identity and meaningful community. This intersection of past and present offers unprecedented opportunities for understanding and applying biblical heritage to contemporary challenges. The altar's remarkable legacy invites viewers to join an ongoing mission of uncovering biblical mysteries through evidence-based storytelling that honors both scholarly rigor and spiritual insight. This approach fosters meaningful community engagement while encouraging active participation through subscriptions, comments, and continued exploration of Hebrew Israelite heritage and biblical truth. The archaeological revelations surrounding ritual technology, prophetic fulfillment, and cultural connections provide a solid foundation for future investigations into biblical mysteries that continue to shape contemporary faith and identity. The altar's discovery opens doors to additional questions that promise to yield even more remarkable insights into God's eternal plan for His people. The methodology demonstrated in this investigation, combining archaeological evidence with biblical prophecy and contemporary cultural analysis, offers a model for future research that maintains scholarly integrity while addressing the spiritual and cultural needs of communities seeking authentic heritage validation. This balanced approach avoids both uncritical acceptance and dismissive skepticism. Your personal journey into these ancient mysteries begins right here with this remarkable archaeological discovery. The evidence invites you to subscribe to our ongoing exploration. Share these revelations with others who seek truth, and actively explore your own Hebrew Israelite roots through serious study and authentic worship. The Mount Ebal altar's discovery provides concrete biblical proof of heritage that demands embrace, rather than skepticism, offering a foundation for faith that extends far beyond human traditions into the realm of divine revelation and prophetic fulfillment. Your engagement with these truths determines how effectively this ancient legacy continues to impact contemporary believers and future generations. The responsibility that comes with this knowledge requires more than passive acknowledgement. It demands active engagement with the spiritual and cultural implications of archaeological validation for Hebrew Israelite heritage. The altar's discovery creates opportunities for community building, educational development, and spiritual renewal that honor both ancient traditions and contemporary needs. The significance of your response to this discovery extends beyond personal spiritual growth to encompass community transformation and cultural renewal that validates a heritage, often unity and understanding across diverse audience while authentic audiences. The ancient altar speaks to contemporary hearts with urgent relevance that transcends academic curiosity to demand spiritual and cultural response. My friend, as we conclude this remarkable journey through one of archaeology's most significant discoveries, I want you to understand that we have explored far more than ancient stones and historical curiosities. We have uncovered a divine blueprint that connects Hebrew Israelite heritage directly to contemporary faith and cultural identity in ways that demand both scholarly attention and personal response. The Mount Ebal altar challenges every assumption about biblical history while providing concrete evidence that validates the authentic heritage of Hebrew Israelite communities worldwide. This discovery transcends academic debate by offering tangible proof that ancient worship practices continue to influence modern expressions of faith and cultural identity. The implications of this archaeological validation extend into every aspect of biblical studies, cultural identity, and spiritual practice for communities that have long sought recognition of their authentic heritage. The altar's discovery provides the foundation for renewed confidence in biblical truth and prophetic fulfillment that empowers believers to embrace their covenant identity with unprecedented scholarly support. I urge you to share this video with everyone who seeks truth about biblical archaeology and Hebrew Israelite heritage. Subscribe to our channel for continued investigation into archaeological discoveries that validate biblical truth and challenge conventional historical narratives that have marginalized authentic heritage for far too long. The journey we have taken together today represents just the beginning of revelations that await discovery as we continue to uncover the hidden truths of biblical archaeology and prophetic fulfillment. The Mount Ebal altar opens doors to additional mysteries that promise to yield even more remarkable insights into the authentic heritage of Hebrew Israelite communities and their contemporary significance. What biblical mystery should we decode next? Your comments and suggestions guide our ongoing exploration into the remarkable intersections between ancient prophecy, archaeological evidence, and contemporary spiritual renewal that continue to unfold in these prophetic times. The ancient altar has spoken, and its message demands our continued attention and response as we seek to understand God's eternal plan for His people in these last days.